Okay, welcome students, and I am back here with more interesting and exciting features and concepts about an operating system of chapter 1, which I picked up from class 8th. And student, this is part 2. Okay, so let's take a small and very quick revision of part 1, and then we will start our current lecture. Okay, so in the previous video, student, we have been learned about the the strong relationship between hardwares and softwares. Okay, and we also learned that how hardwares and softwares are, in spite of hardwares and softwares are independent bodies, independent components, but they are complementary to each other, which means hardware cannot operate without software and software cannot execute without any hardwares. We also learned about the categorization and classifications of the operating system along with its definition and roles and responsibilities. Okay, in the classification part we have learned about two different types of operating system on the basis of interface, that is GUI, graphical user interface, and CUI, character user interface. GUI, about GUI I told you that graphical user interface, where user can instruct or interact with computers graphically, which means they don't need to provide or write any command. Okay, they can do anything graphically through the mouse or through the keyboard. On the other hand, character user interface was a type of operating system where user cannot interact with any computer graphically. They have to apply or they have to write commands to instruct in anything to the computer. Okay, so that was the major difference between these two different types of operating system. Now come to the current lecture. Here student, we will try to understand the important advantages and disadvantages of GUI over CUI. Okay, so let's start with the advantages. First, the GUI. GUI, as I told you, it's a very attractive and very appealing, just because it's graphical interface. Okay, on the other hand, CUI is less attractive and less appealing, just because there is no graphical interface. So I can say more attractive and this is less attractive. Okay, I'm not going to write. Let's let's write less attractive, right? This is the first advantage of GUI over CUI. Okay, now next is sorry, user friendly. It is not user friendly. Okay, GUI is always user friendly, just because there are so many graphical operations that you can perform. Okay, which means you will get their graphical elements like icons, like graphical buttons, like graphical menus. So you don't need to search and you don't need to bother to open any file or open any folder. There are icons of folders and files and buttons. So just take a mouse or you can use your keyboard and just select that particular file or folder or button or menu and just simple click. So which makes very much user friendly. Okay, but on the other hand, I have told you that CUI can do not use any graphical interface, which means if you want to perform any kind of operation on the system, you have to write a command. If you want to open a file, a folder, you need to write a command. Okay, but which means GUI is user friendly and CUI is not user friendly. Okay, third one is multiple tasks, where single task. This is the major advantage of GUI over CUI. See, with the any kind of GUI operating system, we can perform or we can process multiple tasks simultaneously at the same time. For example, if you are creating a document using MS Word, at the same time you can browse your mails, you can search anything in the Google. Okay, you can run any movie, you can listen any music. Okay, so you can check your mails, so you can perform a multiple task at the same time with any GUI operating system. But on the other hand, CUI is not a graphical user interface, so you cannot perform multiple tasks at a time. With any of the character user interface operating system, you can perform only single task at a time, right? So this is the major advantage of GUI over CUI, right? So these were few. One more, and this advantage is something which actually direct impact to the performance of the computer. Okay, let's discuss this one to the in the disadvantage part. So these were few more important advantages of GUI over CUI. And now let's discuss the disadvantages of the GUI over CUI. Once again I am repeating: more attractive, less attractive, user friendly, because just because you are not using any command over here, you can perform each and everything by everything graphically. Here you need to write a command to perform any kind of process or task. Here you can perform multiple tasks, and here you can perform single task at a time, right? Now moving on to the disadvantage part. Now, in spite of these advantages, GUI has so many disadvantages over CUI. So let's discuss one by one. And the first disadvantage, which actually direct impact the performance of any computer, that is much memory Okay, the first disadvantage is GUI type of operating system require much memory on the RAM. Okay, so you know that RAM is the main memory of the computer. Okay, it is the main memory of the computer, and if any operating system takes or occupy maximum part of memory of the RAM, then definitely it will give a direct bad impact of the uh, on the computers, just because the speed and performance of the computer directly depends upon the, you know, RAM performance. I think you uh, definitely know about this fact. So speed is depend upon the, you know, capacity of the RAM. If GUI type operating system, if sorry, in fact, GUI operating system requires much more memory in the RAM. I'm not talking about secondary storage devices. There is no role of secondary storage devices in the execution of the computer system. Okay, there is only and only one component is responsible for this, that is random access memory, that is the main memory of the computer. So if GUI occupies more memory, in fact GUI required more memory, much memory on the RAM, so definitely it will, you know, decrease the performance of the, or reduce the performance of the, you know, computer system. But on the other hand, CUI, it is not a graphical user interface, so it did not does not require, you know, much memory on the RAM, so it can be worked with the less memory, so the system performance remain maintained. Okay, it is just like that. Suppose you are playing, you have installed a high graphical, you know, program, the game, like there are so many games like Max Payne 2, and there are so many games like cricket. Okay, so these kind of games, GTA Vice City, these kind of games require, you know, much memory, first thing, and high graphical interface. So if you don't have a much memory on the RAM, then you cannot execute these games. Sometimes you have, you know, feel that the game is not running properly just because your the memory is not more uh, much for the running that particular game. So that is just because the maximum of the space is occupied by the graphical user interface. Okay, next disadvantage is it requires more resources, more resources to load graphical elements. Okay, does not require. Now what is this? GUI requires more resources just because again it is a graphical. So represent a different type of graphical elements like icons, like buttons, like menus, you definitely require more resources. But again, on the other hand, CUI does not require more resources just because it is just a character user interface. There is nothing to show to represent graphically. Okay, so this require more resources. Then it is bit slower. I have already told you faster. In this concept, why it is slower? Just because it is taking too much memory on the RAM, and you know this fact, the RAM is the speed of computer and performance of computer is directly depend upon the RAM. So if it is occupying much memory on the RAM, then definitely speed will be slowed down. Okay, but on the other hand, it is not requiring much memory, it requires less memory on the RAM, so the system speed will be faster than GUI. Okay, and one more thing, more devices required, less to work with any GUI type of operating system. You required number of devices like keyboard. You require devices like mouse. Okay, so but if we talk about the character user interface, you require only and only keyboard. You don't require any other thing, any other component apart from keyboard, just because there is nothing graphical to point out. Okay, you every time you need to write a command, and to write a command you require only keyboard. You don't required you does not require do not require for that particular my mouse. Okay, but here in the GUI, here you can perform each and everything graphically. You want every human, this is in our nature that we want to process or do anything very easily. We don't want to do thing with some kind of with so many, I can say, we don't want to work hard. We want to do each and everything very easily. So in the GUI process, if you want to open a file, you do not write, you will not open DOS mode, and you will not write a command. You just go, you just pick up the mouse and just point out that particular file and folder, and just double click on that particular file, or single click on that particular file or folder. So you want to do things very easily. So for pointing files, folders, games, any applications, you require that mouse. So the resources, there are the more resources or devices you require with GUI interface, and less, in fact only one resources you require with the CUI interface. So these were few advantages over GUI to CUI, and disadvantages of GUI over CUI. Okay, just a second. So now I'm going to stop this lecture right now, and in the next lecture, or in the third part, we will learn about the roles and responsibilities of an operating system. Till then, stay safe, stay home. Bye bye. Thank you.